Get your brushes ready because what I'm about to teach you will leave you feeling like a pro watercolorist in no time. In this quick and easy tutorial, we are going to transform simple brushstrokes into gorgeous tulip flowers. This watercolor painting is ideal for beginners or anyone who doesn't feel like they have a lot of time to paint. This literally took me only 10 to 15 minutes to do, so it's definitely worth a try. Let's just jump right into it here. Now, besides watercolor paints, we need a paper towel, some clean water, and of course, some brushes. I'll be using my Craftamo brushes from my personally designed Craftamo brush set today. There are only two of these brushes that we actually need for today's painting though, the angle brush and the number 3 round. Now, the exciting news that many of you have been waiting to hear is that these brushes are going to be back in stock next Thursday, the evening of March 6th. I'm going to be hosting a special premiere video that day in honor of the second launch at 6 o'clock p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, where I will be watching right along with you and I will be available to live chat. I will also be demonstrating a special painting for anyone that would like to join me for just the painting portion that day. Let me pull that out real quick so you can see what I'll be doing. Besides some occasional easy and beginner-friendly paintings like the one I'm doing today, I do like to provide something that's a little bit more challenging once in a while. This is a little bit more difficult and definitely takes some time to do, but I promise it's not actually as hard as it looks, and I will go over every bit of it in a slow step-by-step way. So I hope you'll join me for this special brush launch video premiere. There are a limited amount of these sets, and the brushes sold out within just 1 week last time, so make sure you tune in if you're wanting to get a set. There is also going to be some exciting sales going on during this launch, both with the brush set as well as the outline for this painting. So mark your calendars. This is a day you are not going to want to miss. Okay, enough about that. Let's move on to today's painting. Now, I'm just wanting to keep this quick and simple today, so for my paper today, I'm just going to pull out this watercolor paper block pad. This is a cold press, 100% cotton paper, and it's bound and glued already, so no taping down of the paper is required, saving us a little bit of time. And as a side note, I do have a list of supplies with links listed in the description of this video if you're interested. Now, you can literally paint these tulips in any color that you want, but the two colors I'd like to use for the tulip heads today are Azo Yellow and Alizarin Crimson. I'm going to water both of these colors down just a little bit to make them nice and light in value. You can have them as dark or as concentrated as you want, but I am planning to sort of do a layering technique with these, so it kind of helps if they're more on the lighter side of things if you want that effect to work. Okay, now the angle brush is really the star brush for today's piece, and we are going to have a little bit of fun with a two-toned effect. So we'll first load it up with some of this light and bright yellow paint. And then to get the two-toned color into our brush strokes, we are just going to take the very tip of the brush and swipe maybe about half of these bristles, the longer half, through the alizarin crimson. Now, I've demonstrated this technique and the brush strokes in greater detail in previous painting tutorials, so I'll leave links to those in the description of the video if you need a little bit more information and insight on how to do this. But then after your brush is fully loaded, we'll try out some simple brush strokes. So holding the brush so that it sort of feels or looks like it's upside down, we'll place the longer tip facing downward on the paper, press down on the brush, and then start to pull that brush up and around, creating a bit of a curve like the letter C. And then turning that brush at the top will form a point with the smaller back side of the brush. Now go ahead and load your brush with the color again in the same way as we just did with the yellow base color first, and then swiping the longer half into the alizarin crimson, and we're ready to paint the second brush stroke. I think this side is a little bit trickier to paint, but we are going to be holding the brush in the exact same way, in the exact same position as the first stroke with the longer point facing down. Then we'll again press down on the brush, and we're going to turn it slightly so that the flat side of the brush is now touching the paper, making a nice broad stroke. Then we'll slightly turn the brush at the top again, ending with a nice point from the smaller end or back side of the brush. And that actually completes two sides of the tulip. Don't you just love the two-tone colors that we have going on here? I just think it is so pretty. Now we want that to dry just a little bit before we add the center part to the flower, which will create a neat layering effect. So let's go ahead and paint a few more of these brush strokes or sides of the tulips. Feel free to have them pointing in different directions if you want to change things up a bit. You can also paint as many of them as you want in your composition. I think I'll try for maybe 6 of them and see if that fills out the page okay. Now don't worry if it takes a second to get the hang of these brush strokes. Pull out a piece of scrap paper if you need to and just practice it over and over until you've got the hang of it. The truth is that even though it might take a minute to figure out how to do it, once as you've got it down, you can use this stroke for so many things and it eventually becomes very natural. It just gets easier and quicker with each painting, and pretty soon you'll be whipping out something like this in just minutes. But until it feels like second nature, just take it nice and slow. Your paper's not going anywhere, there's no rush, you don't have to do these strokes quickly if you don't want to, just nice and slow. Be in control of your brush, think about the shape that you're trying to create with it. I hope you're enjoying my tips and painting techniques so far. I love helping people be able to create a piece of artwork that they can feel proud of. If you are enjoying my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming weekly tutorials. All right, this looks great. You can really see the outline shape of these tulips already. So let's just finish them up by adding in the middle area. I think those first flowers I did are actually dry now, so I'm going to start with them. The great news is that we are literally going to be loading the brush in the exact same way, and we will actually be using the exact same brush strokes too. The difference here is that we are going to combine those two strokes together to make one nice large petal shape. Now you might notice I'm starting these strokes below the first two, forming kind of a point here at the bottom of the flower. And then I'm going to be overlapping the first two petals just a little bit also, maybe about halfway into the petal. And this creates a really fun layered area that looks really neat when you're done. Now, after I've done 2 of these, I'm actually going to take a quick break, switch over to my number 3 round, and take a touch of green paint. This is just a mixture of some olive green and hooker's green. Then I'll dab a small dot of this green color along the pointed bottom area that we just painted. Now I'm choosing to do this while the paint is still a little bit wet so that this green color will bleed into the petals a little bit. Now you don't have to do it when it's wet if you don't want to. I just really like the blending that happens here when you do it when it's wet. All right, I'll go ahead and paint in the next 2 tulip centers in the exact same way, followed by the little green base. And then we'll finish off the last 2 flowers again in the same way. And I should have said this before, you can use any size of angle brush for this. The technique and the brush strokes will be the same with whatever size you choose to use. It'll just change how big or small the tulip heads are. You know, I personally don't usually feel like I paint as good when I am freehanding a piece. I find I do better and feel more confident and comfortable when I have a little drawing or an outline to follow. I find I make less mistakes that way, and I don't feel quite as intimidated because with an outline of some sort, I kind of feel like I'm just painting within the lines like a paint by number or something. I guess that's why I offer outlines with many of my paintings through my Etsy shop, so you'll have to check that out. But every once in a while, I do enjoy painting something like this that's just simple, quick, and loose. You just let whatever happens happen, and you enjoy the painting process for what it is and how it turns out. Sometimes it looks great and other times it doesn't, but I always learn something through the experience, and it's always enjoyable anyway, no matter the outcome. I just have to be okay with the fact that sometimes it's not going to turn out exactly how I envisioned it would. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think they look like tulip heads, don't they? And it really didn't take long at all to do this. So let's finish off this piece with some stems and leaves. Using that same green color and the number 3 round, I'll just add in some nice stem lines spreading down from the tulip heads down to the bottom of the page. Now, I often like to make stems nice and thin. They are delicate and beautiful looking to me, but tulips do tend to have thicker stems to them. So I will be making making these a little bit more thick so that they look a little more realistic. But you can be the judge on your own painting and do yours however you want it to look. Whoops, that one got a little bit thicker than I wanted, but it's too late to change it now, so we will just go with it. All right, this is really coming together quite nicely. The last thing that we'll add in here are a few leaves, and then we can call this painting done. I'll come back to the angle brush again for this. I'll take some of that same green paint and load the brush nice and full. Now I'll actually hold the brush in the same way as we did when creating the petals too. The biggest difference is that we are going to make these thicker and longer than the petals. You can use 2 strokes to make the leaf nice and thick, or you can simply just use 1 stroke per leaf. The choice is up to you. You kind of just have to gauge your own painting and decide where they would look good and how big they should be. The important thing is to know when to stop and realize when you have enough. It can be really easy to get carried away. And again, if you need to pull out a scrap paper and practice these a little bit before putting them on the final piece, then by all means, please do so. Don't be in too big of a rush. Paint these in nice and slow, be in control of your brush, and again, think about the shape that you're trying to create. And at this point, I think I will call this pretty little piece done. I think it turned out pretty good for a simple and easy, yet also delicate and beautiful painting. Now, you of course can add more detail in this if you want, like vein lines on the leaves or even the petals, or maybe even a splash of background color or some color at the base around the leaves. I've just given you the basics to get started, but now you can adapt it in any way that you want to. I'm so glad you joined me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.